Today I want to carry on my discussion about using digital curation to develop a course, particularly for people undertaking and transitioning to management roles for the first time, which is a very challenging thing. And that first line management role is one of the most impactful roles on a team, so it's critical. So let me give you a tiny bit of background about why I'm doing this. So what is curation? Well, at its basis, it's around finding resources that meet a particular need and using those to help develop people. So in the same way that you have curators of a museum, this is about curating resources, and it's very much around using what's out there on the internet, which is a huge tool, finding the exact piece of resource in some way, whatever that is, to help meet a particular learning need, and to place that learning need at the point at which it's needed, rather than on some course that is away from somewhere and detached from your day-to-day role. Perhaps let me give you an example. So let me take the first line management role. We've got in our business a large number of line managers, first line managers, quite new to role. Most of them actually, it would appear, have come from within their existing teams. So not only are they kind of transitioning into a new management role, they're actually transitioning from their role as a team member into a manager, and that's not always easy for people. But an example would be the idea. So a couple of examples. One, in the run up to their starting their new job, maybe a week or two before, stuff that starts helping them to think about what their role is going to be, what sort of manager they want to be, how they're going to approach their early days and weeks in their new role. Some thinking and ideas that's going to help them do that. Another example, on a more practical operational level, tackling their first meeting, preparing and planning and implementing it. Maybe their first one-to-one with one of their team members. Maybe sort of an HR issue that's kind of coming from a perspective of maybe having to deal with lateness or sickness, the sort of things people won't have had to do in previous roles. And what you do is you find a way with resources to help them deal with those things, to think about those things at the point at which they need it, or around the point they really need it, rather than going on a course, coming back and kind of it being a bit left and forgotten and being a bit remote and not very contextualised. That's the idea of this. Yeah. Before I go any further, I've already made 3 micro videos using Snapchat about curation, and if you look at that link down there, you'll go onto my YouTube pages, and if you just scroll down, not that many, you'll see 3 videos. They're called Curation for Beginners number 1, number 2, and number 3. So onto this particular project, I was doing a little bit of work and talking to people, and what I realised is that there's a gap in terms of supporting people going into first-time management roles, and really realised that it wasn't a course we needed. There are management courses and things, but actually this was a good example of something we could look at resources to support. Courses, not resources. And that's the basis of this, really, and where it works is really effective. And this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to take you through kind of my thinking around how I'm building this course up. I'm far from it being finished, but I'm at a stage with the planning that I think it's worth sharing that now. So, in order to start getting that content correct, I went out to a bit of consultation to managers in first and second line roles, ideally ones that hadn't been there that long. And I kind of got a load of stuff back about what the key things. I asked them 3 key questions, which were, and the 3 questions were: 1, what did you find the most challenging aspect of your new line management role? 2, what, if anything, did you find most surprising about the role once you started? And 3, looking back, what 1 or 2 things do you think would have helped you prepare for your new role before you started or in the first few months? And those 3 questions yielded about 20 emails with a load of stuff which I've mapped out. And so what I did was map this onto a piece of A3, and the key things were like this. Very strongly came out the idea of being a mini HR person, having to deal with lateness and maybe some disciplinary stuff and sickness. Question about people. how do I come across to people? How do I help people make decisions? How do I make decisions? The people stuff. Third thing was about the politics of management, very much around being in the middle as a middle manager, often being right in the middle of your team and their senior managers. An issue came up about how will the team feel about me? Someone said as a woman, but just as having been a former team member, as a younger person perhaps. And then the fourth area is about their behaviour. What will their behaviour look like? How will they anticipate other people's behaviours? How are they going to interact with their team? How are they going to adapt? So kind of really some strong key areas there. So what have I done with that since I did that? Well, it's taken me a bit of time. I've been out quite a bit, so this work's kind of fitting in when I can. But what I did yesterday and today is I've pulled that together in a slightly more coherent view, I think, looking like this. So, for example, I've kind of taken a bit of a time scale, and I said before people start a new role, maybe in the first week or two leading up to it, they'll be looking at the issues around anticipating the role, preparing for it. And then they'll be looking at kind of maybe I'm thinking about input from other managers, something that demonstrates that other managers have been in those roles and they should trust themselves. Maybe some tips, maybe some reassurance. Now that isn't stuff that's already out there. I'd have to make that, unless of course I find material of other people in similar roles, the experiential stuff. So I'm hoping to be able to curate all of this rather than actually have to produce any content. Okay, so a bit further, what happens once you start the job? So what we've got here is kind of week one, is stuff around achievements at the end of week one. I got to the end of my first week, that's quite critical. And then we're moving to week two and beyond. Some stuff around the politics of middle management, so you can't please all the people all the time, giving it a bit of a catchy name to help. Looking at stuff around getting the most out of each team member, and then stuff around their own development. And then two things that run alongside the whole time actually will be around being a mini HR person and things like tackling absences and things like that, and sickness, and then also the operational management stuff, preparing for your first team meeting, preparing for your first one-to-one. So effectively I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's kind of 8 areas there, which I'm not sure if that's too many. I have to think about that a bit more. So I'm then going on to my last sheet, which is this. If I just turn this over, I'm starting to plan what this might look like. So I'm thinking of using, as I said, names that make it a bit more appealing. So rather than things like first line management course, hit the ground running in your first management role. Don't know, but I'm playing about with that, and the modules, as you saw on the other page, are kind of slightly catchy, make it a little bit more appealing than, how do I do this, or, I know, boring stuff. So this is my planning now. I've got 3 sections to it. I've got the actual modules, so those 8 modules, but I might change that a bit. Then the actual resources that are going to be used, and then under that, under each resource, it will be what the tasks are. When I say tasks, I'm talking about the embedding of learning. You could call it an assessment, but I'd rather kind of thinking about it as a task to embed that learning. So it's, people look at that resource, they read it, they watch the video, they do the assessment, whatever, and then they think about how it reflects on their role, how are they going to use it. And with the right platform as well, you can then make that social. You can get different line managers talking to each other about their experiences. I'll give you one example, quite basic, but it helps exemplify the point. Let me take your first team meeting, for example. So there might be a couple of articles, a template, a video, whatever, around preparing for your first team meeting, and there might be a template with then a load of different sections on, 5 or 6 sections, to help take people through the things you need to think about in the meeting. Not just the agenda and the topics and stuff like that, but how the team members will be. Are there any particular challenging team members? How will people respond to that? Is there anything that's contentious there? Have you given enough time in terms of your planning for the meeting? All of that stuff. They go into that meeting, have that meeting, and then you have a reflection afterwards around, did that work? How was that work? How does that work? What might you do differently next time? Do people behave as you expect them to? And then if you've got the social element, you can share all that with everyone as well, and they can give their thoughts, and you kind of learn from that. that's it in a nutshell. Sounds easy, really. So, what are the challenges for me? So, here's the thing. What are the challenges? I'm kind of getting this set up. I've got a bit of a challenge over what tool to use, what platform. I'd like to use Curator, which, if you haven't seen it, is brilliant. But for various reasons, we're not. So, I'm looking at using another tool for that. I'm thinking maybe Slack could maybe act as a tool to put the articles on, put the resources on, get people to talk, put the questions on, get people to think about it, get people to share ideas as well. I think it works. I'll give it a go. It's free anyway, so I'm going to give that a go. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which is pretty major and probably sounds a bit silly really given what I'm doing, but it's kind of just dawned on me in the last weeks as I've been pulling this together a bit more, is about finding the exact resource. The internet's a massive place. There's everything you possibly would ever want on it, but the key question is, can you find it? And we only have so much time to be looking for things. So can we find the exact resource and exact nature of it that's going to fit the particular need we have? I don't know, and I guess I'm going to find out. Because it is that Harold Yarche stuff, seeking it, finding that good stuff, making sense of it, contextualising it for the participants, contextualising it for the particular need we've got to make sure it's moulded to fit the need, and then obviously sharing that to make sure it's being used. I guess I'm about to find out as I start trawling the internet to really meet those specific module requirements, and time will tell, no doubt I'll chat. So that's it for me today. That is my curation journey to date. That's where I am. I'm getting somewhere, and over the next couple of weeks we'll hopefully pull this together in more detail. There's a long way to go to make this work, but I'm learning masses as I go along. Some stuff I'm a bit surprised about, really. I am slightly concerned about finding stuff, actually. Now I've really started to pinpoint the needs, but we'll see. Cheers, see you soon.